but OANN is really important to talk about because I think they're the babies that have taken advantage of the system. Um, so it's a cable channel founded by Robert Herring Sr. And owned by the Herring Networks, launched in July 2013. So they're only 7 years old, or 8 years old, if you really want to be specific. Uh, Founded in 2013 in San Diego, they have a branch in Washington, D.C. and New York City. And they're obviously supporters of Trump. They've been very specific and told others to be outwardly conservative on their network. It's pretty obvious. It's not shielded by anything, so I don't think that surprises anyone. Um, the first time really people heard about them is Tommy Lauren. So it's Tommy Lahren. Sorry to mispronounce her name. Early audiences came from viral rants from this breakout star, and there was a year from August 2014 before leaving for Glenn Beck's The Blaze, and then to Fox Nation. So she had an upward trajectory, and then she took it because they didn't stay with the network that was. It's still very popular amongst people. They just, this is all about creating profit in their minds. I think it's not about having an environment where news matters. It's actually about creating your own profit margin for yourself. Um, so OANN is actually more toxic to me because Newsmax is trying to be a company that has some fundamentals,
Yeah, yeah,
but
yeah.
in truth, you know, they gave credence to George Soros to these crazy ideas that George Soros both funded a so-called caravan and then collaborated with Nazis as a teenager. That there was no chemical weapons attack in Domia, Syria. In 2018, that the Parkland mass shooting survivor David Hogg had been coached for his media appearance by his father, a former FBI agent. Since 2018, they have employed Jack Prosoback as a political correspondent and on-air presenter. Prosoback first achieved a degree of prominence as a key player in spreading the Pizzagate scandal.
Okay.
And this year in the Southern Province, yeah, I mean that's exactly why I had to get there. Is that this is every crazy idea that you've heard, every Reddit chain that you've might have been attached to, all of these ideas have somehow made it through Newsmax, and I'm not sure who's the creator. I don't know if the people have created these crazy ideas or if the networks themselves are actually seeing a profit from this instead. So if they're seeing a profit from it, they just decided that this is how we're going to grift. I know that Newsmax sells vitamins, so I mean they'll sell you anything.
Wow, wow. It's crazy, man. This is, it's funny, like, people, it's more like it's like they want to call people fake news, like all these different things fake news, right? But you think about their, it's not gunshots, right? I don't know. It sounds, I hear like banging sounds outside. It's weird. Being in Newark, it can, it can be a little crazy out here sometimes. What was I gonna say? Yeah, they label people fake news, but their views and how they're telling the news seems to be more unethical than anybody else, right? Like they're like their goal is to make money and talk about things that help them get the ratings, right? It's not about the actual facts about things and stuff. It's pretty bad, you know. I don't know, man. Like at the end of the day, I just want more honest reporting, and it seems like even on the left, there's like some, like which we'll talk about, I guess, later, moments in which there's misleading information or things so that they can get certain things accomplished for their base, which is like either center left or center right or whatever it is, because that's more like the corporate Democrat like viewpoint and things. But when it comes to progressives or whatever, they'll lie to progressives too. Like I don't want to say it's all on the right. That they're making up stories and exaggerating and embellishing things. You know what I mean? But yeah, this is tough.
I think we're watching different tiers of how that system works. Some
Yeah.
people are profiting on every single level of politics. Some of them, but the issue really isn't about the profit. It's about what your reason to make the profit is. Is it to that you have an ideology? That's why it's difficult for me to have more hatred of like a Fox News and Newsmax. No, and I don't follow any of it. I
Yeah,
refuse to take the time to do so. Um, but it's because I don't feel like they're being honest players. I feel like there are very few honest actors on any of those stations. So without that kind of backbone, I you lost me. So it's almost weird to think that we have to go save a section of the population from these people. Like
yeah,
somehow we have to I don't even want to be like you got to cross a barrier between all these people. It's not our job to. It's really it shouldn't be our job to do that. Um, but until people want to do it, I'm not sure what else we're presented with because we have to break some people's brains a little bit.
yeah.
You
Part
need
of
to
me,
like real.
yeah, I'm sorry. Part of me feels like, it's a lost cause, and just try to, like, those people willing to listen are the ones that we should talk to. I think that there's a percentage of people that feel a certain way, and then another percentage that feel another way, and then there's some people that can be molded. I think my focus is going to be on the ones that I'm not. I don't want to say just agree with me, but are kind of open minded to listen to other people as well. Like, I'm open minded. If a right wing person talks to me and gives me a justifiable reason to feel a certain way, I might agree with certain things, right? I'm going to be open minded. But if I've gotten to the point where where a person is like, they put up their wall and that wall staying up, I'm not going to waste my time on that. I'd rather waste my time on somebody that could be molded into something that, and I don't even mean like to the point where they're just following my beliefs. I want them to be open minded and to do the research and everything else. But at least, that's a better way of living life, to like be open minded. And I feel like, a lot of these right wing people, even even Democrats, man, like
You can just
they're
say
like that.
left wing. I mean, we can. Let's be
But
honest
my,
with
my
each
thing
other.
is
I think that
I don't think they're left though anymore, man. I really think a lot of them are really centered. Like, it's like they're willing to settle for a lot of things that, like Obamacare is Romney care, right? So it's like they're not they don't realize until like it takes like a something like COVID to happen, that they really would want something like Medicare for all, right? Like it's they've been kind of molded into being a little more center right is okay. You know what I mean? It's cool to settle with some of these people. It's cool to accept Pelosi's decisions and Schumer's decisions and all that other stuff when it's really not. Like, look at where we're at. They settled for $600 a month. That's ridiculous. We know that we need more than that. Like, they you know I don't know, man.
so.
It's it.
I no. I think it's actually important to talk about how they are feckless in their ability to get things done per
Yeah,
se.
yeah,
But
yeah,
the truth is that the goalposts do keep moving.
yeah,
The
yeah.
goalposts for the Democratic Party and I believe that this is Mitch McConnell, this is Lindsey Graham, this is long-term effects of having these people in. Sorry about that.
That's good.
Having these people in the Senate and in Congress in general. Um, they literally have gerrymandered the system so that it is difficult for someone to come in there and change the system out of a let's do the war bill every year and then tie a lot of stuff to it. Like they're very much knowing of how to mess with us. They
Look,
don't care about us. They care about the money, and it's very clear that that's happening. But for some reason, they stay popular in their own states, or eke out a win at a good 60% clip.
their team is ride or die for them. Like, our team has like just recently, I think the Republican Party is now having like fighting within the party. You know what I mean? It's been a while since like something like that. They had the Tea Party and all these other different little factions of like Republicans, but now it's like really
Well,
like
they're the
either
blue dog Democrats.
yeah,
Let's be remember that too.
yeah, and then now you have, on our side, we have the progressives versus like the more center leaning Democrats, right? Like, people willing to make exceptions. Oh yeah, okay, yeah, we'll do that if we can get this and whatever. No, we need to start putting our foot down. Now's the time for a lot of that stuff, especially with all that stuff with supposedly Jimmy Dore and AOC. And I don't want to get into too many other topics because, like I know we said, we're going to try to stay focused, but we need to kind of go on a further left fight, to get more than if we ask for a little, we're not going to get any. We got to ask for a lot, and then settle for somewhere in between a lot and a little, instead of just asking for a little and then losing something like we've been doing. Like it seems like we just want this little itty bitty, and the Republicans say no, and then we concede, right? We got to ask for Medicare for all, and then try to work our way to a point where it's acceptable for everybody, and they're not even willing to do that. The Democrats call us stupid, right? Our own party calls us stupid for thinking about it.
So yeah, no, I think this is actually a important time for our party, because we need to have the ability to have these kind of arguments and actually just have these arguments. We do not agree, like not us, but as a party, we don't agree on multiple issues, and we have to accept that we've got to fight on a global front for progressive change. So I think that's going to take more, well, obviously more than Biden, but it's going to take multiple efforts. It's going to take probably a whole generation, another generation. Like when I looked at the statistics for a later thing, when they look at Gen Z, they specifically have them as 18 to 22. So they're talking about people who are kids who are 14 to 24, really. You know what I'm saying? So they're talking about that range. And those are the people who are going to need to come out and vote in the future. And that's going to be, I mean, people don't get it. Yes, as you grow older, more people vote. And it's yes, it's a problem to get younger people to vote. But every single time that you do it, you do, obviously, as we're seeing in Georgia, it has an effect. And we have a much happier story at the end of the show about that.
Yeah, do you want to see video 2?
Of course.
Yeah, let's put this one on, see get an opinion on this.
The world over the last century, some of those years make 2020 look like a picnic. What has made this year perhaps more difficult was that many of us believed the media. We lived in a social network reality, and we trusted the government to make decisions for us. The virus was used to fundamentally change the way that we view ourselves and our nation, and perhaps for the first time in our history, we became truly subservient to our government. What did China hope to accomplish with this virus? Sure, they wanted to create economic chaos in the West, and they did, but they also understood that there is a powerful strain in our media and our politics that is a shadowy reflection of the ideologies that underpin Chinese government. The Chinese understood that politicians afraid of losing their jobs and those who would jump at the chance to exert more control over the American population would really do their work for them.
That's so hard to even talk about, because there's China. I don't even know where there's just this obvious lie that they're just like, okay, no, we're going to triple down on it, and we're going to tell you to come out on broadcast air and say it over and over again until people believe that the virus is China's fault, as if a nation as if a microbe gives a shit about a country. Right. It doesn't care about a country. It just propagates from place to place. And I think that it's like the people who want to be applauded for, okay, it's the same people who want to be applauded right now for Trump saying that you want $2,000 in stimulus. But at the same time, they want to be applauded for him closing down the border to China back in a month too late, when he hadn't expressed knowledge of it.
They said when it was Bernie Sanders who asked for 2,000, it was socialism, right? But now that Trump's doing it, that's a great idea. Right? I'm like, it's the same thing. It's giving $2,000 to people, right? So it's like, it's just funny. And on top of that, to blame China on everything, because there's, I guess he wrote in a tweet earlier, this is the China virus. Like before all this stuff happened, like earlier today, he was like, this is the China virus. Remember, everybody should get $2,000 because this is a China virus. He keeps saying that stuff. And I'm like, this guy's crazy, man. Like you said, a virus doesn't care. It's like the flu or a cold or whatever. If you happen to be near it, you can get sick from it. It is what it is. But yeah, man. Like it's just I don't understand like why it's like when it comes to like right wing stuff, it's like hate everybody else. America's number one. Like we're perfect. Like the stuff that we're spewing is I'm starting to feel like I'm in China. Like the stuff that they say about China controlling the population and so on and so forth. Some of the stuff that they're saying makes me feel like they're doing the same kind of manipulative things that they say other countries do. And I don't know, man. I just want some normalcy.
It's
I'm hoping when Trump, not Trump, when Biden comes in, that we get something that resembles normalcy again. At least kind of it. It's not going to be perfect, but I'm
what
losing
I
it.
need to say though is that China, though, okay, so there are legitimate issues with the way that we deal with China and have dealt with China for the last probably 30, 40 years, but um, we are allowing them to not take advantage of the system in multiple ways. And then now, especially after 4 years of Trump, there's not a relationship that we have that is really going to help us. It actually has become such a strong relationship between Russia, China, and some of the Indo-China Chinese countries that are there, and that is great for them. It's fantastic. If it's for us. It's almost that we have a democratic mindset, and I think it's good to be pro democracy. I am pro democracy,
Me too.
but it's also these people are unfortunately living under a dictatorship as well, and they're using corporations and this kind of large expansion in China, which is a real issue. That's an actual thing that I wish people could talk about, but it's so complicated, and internationally, it's not a topic that is sexy or even popular to talk about. China is just a rising power in our view, economic power to be more specific.
What kills me about the whole China thing though is it was okay when we were outsourcing to other countries and ripping off and destroying
Hmm.
the stuff here. Now that China has gotten in the mix and because their population is so large and they're able to be more cost
Yes.
effective because they're doing what they're doing. I'm not gonna say cost effective in a good way, but they're doing what they're doing so that they can make products cheaper and more easily accessible for people. Like they're just everything in the United States made out of China, almost everything. You know what I mean? So it's like, so what is it? What are they mad at? That China kind of like upped us one? Is that at the end of the day what it is? That they want to like make China look so horrible? We need to start building back in the United States again. Why? Because we were abusing other countries, like to take advantage. Look at what like back in the days in the 80s and 90s, Gap and all these other companies were getting their clothes for dirt cheap and everything else out, outsourcing to other countries. But now all of a sudden, China's got something in our market, and now they want to cut it out because it's cutting into our thing, and we don't own as much now because of how China has built itself. That's our stupidity. We should have been building at home and doing the things that we had to do here. Majority of the things, at least, we could always outsource to other countries once in a while, but at the end of the day, keep it in house, as much as possible. And that's our fault. And now that we
Well,
don't have, look, go ahead. Go ahead.
we gave them sweetheart. We didn't even. The government gave them some deals, and I don't mean directly gave them deals, but basically they having an approach to trade that was a certain way
Mm-hmm.
over decades
Mm-hmm.
um, allowed them to. And it's not honestly. I don't think it's negative if they were not in a dictatorship, like,
Yep.
and it's a kind of pseudo dictatorship where it's their president who's going to be president for life, and that's something that's very difficult to change. You have to let China change itself. I think that's something that we've learned, is that most of these countries do a better job changing themselves than us coming in and changing them.
Yep.
So it's we've just been ineffective for 4 years. That's just the best way to state it, is that we've blown 4 years of how we could have changed the direction of our country, and we just did not. Um, not even a huge Clinton supporter, but like seeing that how much of OAN and Newsmax controlled the narrative over those probably 8 years or so, because
Mm-hmm.
they've been popular from one place to another by 2013. And by popular, that's up and down, different numbers for different groups. Um, and I just didn't even see it. I personally don't think that I will go watch Newsmax at any point to hate watch it, but just to know how much they changed the way that this nation talked about stuff. Pizzagate was this thing that they propagated.
It's
Um,
it's crazy how they have all this stuff happening, and like I think you and I are like pretty level minded when it comes to like looking at certain news things, calling it for what it is, and moving on to something that's better. Like we look at, I think decent media sources that allow us to kind of get like a more well rounded perspective. Like I don't like MSNBC either. I don't like CNN at times either. They are to me a little more truthful than Fox News and everything else. But even then, I've seen like blatant like disregard to truths and exaggerations and all like whatever else happened from them too. So I try to be open minded, listen to different things. I even listen occasionally to Fox. I've never until recently went on to Newsmax until I started hearing things about them, as well as I've heard of OAN and OANN or OAN. But I never took the
mhm.
time because of all the stories that I heard about. I'm like, okay, this is just crazy right wing, like propaganda. I don't need to see this. I know it's nothing I'm going to agree with. I didn't think what's crazy about Newsmax is when I was going through their site, some of their stuff seems straightforward and whatever, but then I see how some of their discussions that they have with people tend to lean, more right. And I was like, well, you couldn't tell by reading the articles, like because I was reading the articles. But then when you start seeing the actual shows, you're like, wow, like I could see why people kind of like can believe them because their articles look kind of like straight to the point, and some of them actually seem to make sense and so on and so forth. But when you start listening to like how they talk about Trump, won the election, we refuse to acknowledge Biden as the president at the moment, and blah 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 blah, and election fraud, and you're like, wow, so okay, I see where their biases are. You know what I mean? And you wouldn't see that with the actual written text that they have on their websites. Like you wouldn't feel it because of the way they write their articles, which is
Well, it's
which is
because it's like a lot of these newspapers that we have that we even follow it for whatever reason, like Washington Post and New York Times, and
hmm
or the Atlantic, I would even say, that have some conservative leaning people. Um, Newsmax was a publication first. It is first off a publication and then a radio kind of thing, and then it went to TV. So that's why I almost call OAN its toxic brother, because it didn't come from publication. It came directly from just doing a network and just putting people on air and having inflammatory videos with Tommy Lahren.
yeah.
So it's kind of it's just it's informative. It's
Yeah.
informative. I don't know how that changes how we deal with them, because I don't think that we have to change individual people's minds to not watch this stuff. But I mean, I think we're in an area that does not have that influence. I'm sure there is. I'm sure there is, right? But by the numbers, I'm sure we live in even though they have a bureau in New York and Washington D.C., the most liberal areas, I'm sure they're not making their money off that.
Do you
They're not
think
making their viewership off that.
do you think that because like there's areas where I drive in Jersey and I'm sure it's all over the country where there's like a low amount of internet, you know what I mean? Like they don't have like a lot of access to certain kinds of media and internet access. Do you think this affects things? Obviously, if somebody tells somebody, it's a lot of word of mouth going on and so on and so forth. Do you think that um, the left leaning side is not doing as an efficient job as the right leaning side in regards to reaching these people? Do you think that has a huge effect in it? You know what I mean? Like, because I tend to see in like more, farmland area and or what is it, rural? I guess would be the term, right? A lot of Trump supporters and right leaning people, and they seem to be like a lot of them seem to be relatively poor, right? From my the way it looks. but it seems like they're all supporting Trump, thinking like whatever they're doing is going to be the right decision that's going to help them in the long term, which obviously it hasn't. I don't see how Trump has benefited this country at all, but everybody feels that way. Do you think that has a lot to do with it, the lack of resources in that sense, or no?
I actually unfortunately believe that it's an entrenchment into kind of the culture of being a Republican. Um, I have waffled between that before. I am I'm settling recently on the fact that there's a certain cultural phenomenon which is to hate what is the Democratic Party, which was to basically take away rights. Basically, they hate the fact that the Democratic Party switched over into a party that was for the civil rights movement and for like all of these past incidents that took away resources from white people and gave that to people of color and gave that to poor people. And I think there's always been this kind of nostalgia for a time where people who were well off or middle class to upper middle class basically had it nice enough that they could ignore the pain of others. So right now they're in a situation where they're seeing a lot of people hurting and they want to ignore it. They want to ignore it, and they're doing whatever they can to psychologically put that in the corner. And they can do it loudly now, That's the difference. They can do it much in a group. There's these groups that are just, I guess they're grassroots groups. I mean, they're militias, they're people like that, but it is a grassroots movement that's what scares me the most, is that it's as natural as like the way that the Black Lives Matter movement came along. It's this natural feature of the progress, which is dangerous, but it might be actively necessary. You need to almost have such a ridiculous outcome to deal with to then change people's minds, Maybe. That's what I'm hoping as a person.
I'm gonna cut to video 3 so like we could see some of the wildness of like the way people feel about media and stuff.
Okay.
Where'd you get your news from?
OANN, baby.
OANN?
They're a lot more honest than you. Even Fox News is crooked.
Welcome to our new viewers.
If you're watching Newsmax TV or One America News, you are hearing lies that President Trump is going to win a second term.
Trump won the election. He'll win the recount. He'll win in court.
Right now, Joe Biden is pretending to be the president-elect.
Now that Fox has joined the mainstream media in censoring factual reporting,
Fox News is going to tell you to sit on your couch and accept that this election was stolen from you like a good little, person.
Newsmax has not called the election for Joe Biden. Not because we support Donald Trump, because we support democracy. Every vote should count, Brian.
Wow.
Rudy. Yep, that is the owner of Newsmax, or the director of Newsmax. I apologize.
Yeah.
I don't know. That's what I mean. I don't know if I can change that person's mind. That person is not going to be receptive to me or a lot of the people that we know.
Yeah.
And it doesn't matter how intelligent you are at some point. I think that there's a gap where you have to fight for the people who are youngest and are just coming up and now are developing their thoughts. And you can change the minds of people who are older. I just think that it has to happen much more naturally. It needs to almost like hit them like a brick,
Yeah. That or by people that they trust. A lot of it is like a trust issue. Like, oh, this left guy's trying to brainwash me, or like whatever. You know what I mean? Like at the end of the day, they need like family or friends that they trust to actually convince them. That's why a part of me says like I'm not even going to try to convince those people. I want people that are a little more able to be molded, man. At the end of the day, that's the fact that they're saying all that stuff, knowing that how did the whole country lie? Like, why is it if we made a lie, if we cheated the election for Biden, why wouldn't we have done it for all the other, the Senate and the Congress?
Down ballot. I mean, it's
You
a
know
it's
what
a
I mean?
it's a crazy argument. All the
Yeah.
down ballot candidates, then we would have just ransacked that too, and then in the
Yeah.
end, we got to a much more complicated. That's actually what pisses me off sometimes, is that we could get into a much more complicated conversation about the tapestry of America and about how different, like, the groups of people who voted for Trump really were. There's a small swing of urban people who voted for not for Biden, excuse me, for Trump. That is weird. And there's a showing that, women voted predominantly for Biden. I would love to have that kind of discussion and talk about that, but we can't even have like a scientific discussion. Not you and me, but the population can't have a scientific discussion about it.
Yeah. He lost the popular and the electoral college, but people still deny it. You know what I mean? And like, what is it? The 6th, they certified on the 6th or whatever of January, and supposedly
Which couldn't go any faster.
Yeah, it's scary though, because I'm hearing things about people like disrupting it. You know what I mean? So, or calling that day the day that they're gonna do rebellions and like whatever. I don't know. It's a scary thought. We're not over until it's over, bro. Like I feel like a lot of people figure, okay, the electoral college did their thing, so it's a done deal. The courts did their thing, it's a done deal. 6 hasn't come yet. They haven't certified it yet, so that's not, to me, it's not a done deal until Biden's in office and Trump is gone. You know what I mean? And even then, with all the wild stuff that's happening nowadays, these crazy people are still out there, so nothing's really ever done. You know what I mean? I'm just hoping, like they'll set, like with the Barack, they ended up, they hated it, but they kind of was like, okay, whatever, and they let it go. You know what I mean? They had their opinions. They always were trying to say all these nasty things and do these nasty things, but nothing really came of it. These Trump sycophants, you know what I mean? It's like, I don't know, man. It's scary, bro. I don't know what to say about that. I hope it ends. I really hope by inauguration, like, we're in a good place, but who the hell knows, right? We'll see in time. But so yeah, and then the whole thing with the election, like we were discussing about the election, it's endangering people, right? So